Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 327, titled Where Will Quinn Hughes Go? I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Billy Dean, filling in for Nick Villano at pucksandpitchforks.com. Nick Villano is on assignment tonight because there's a big assignment going on. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, Twitch, and now on Instagram Live on the Let's Go Devils Network. Talking Devils hockey. We've got a great guest tonight. Lyle Richardson of Spectors Hockey, the Hockey News, USA Today. He is all over the place, but he's longtime reporter, knows his stuff, knows a lot about this situation. We've got a lot of questions to ask Lyle, good friend of the podcast. Billy Dean, thanks for filling in for Nick at the last second. We have to call audibles, every once in a while.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of Devils fans are very happy to see me on a podcast about Quinn Hughes. So
yeah,
we'll enjoy this one.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Billy Dean does the Hockey on Tap podcast every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, where him, Shorts Guy, Lil Steve, Schwim, yeah,
just a bunch of goons talking at a bar, enjoying themselves.
Yeah, and drinking beers as well. They rate beers and all that kind of stuff.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. So this subject, Bill, I'll tell you, it's really captivated the NHL media recently.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing going on.
But this thing has been going on for a while now. There's always been drips, and then Jim Rutherford goes wild, and then drips, and then goes wild. I mean, what are your thoughts?
So he's obviously one of the GMs, presidents of hockey ops, that just can't say no to an interview and can't stop putting his foot in his mouth. But it's great for hockey content, and it's great for the fans because you hear a little bit more than the standard, this guy is, we're in hockey conversations. He comes right out, and I personally liked the Quinn Hughes comments from yesterday where he mentioned Fitzy by his nickname, and you see all this stuff about how he doesn't know anything about the talks between these two. Listen, when you're one of the biggest stars in the NHL, which is Quinn Hughes, you have a good idea of what is happening in your neck of the woods, and that's what's going on here. And listen, whether it's the Devils, which it does seem like that is the most logical place, but he's not going to the Rangers. I'm not going to say that, but I think there are a couple teams that do pose a threat. One being Detroit, because there are some ties there. And that is another team that's trying to win and trying to get some talent in the building. And there's talks about Minnesota and some other things, but the Devils are the number one. And, obviously the correlations there with his brothers and how that's going to go. But I have a question for you, Sam. If and when this does happen, how do you think it affects Luke?
That's making the assumption that New Jersey will get him. Because, because there's been other names out there. There's a lot of sounding boards out there. Elliot Freeman, who is reliable and a great reporter up in Canada, was even tossing the name of the Washington Capitals, how that would look like. So, and, my thoughts are, if you're in the Metropolitan Division, as close and tight as it is, from first place to the basement, I would do anything to drive up the price. Heck, if I was the Columbus Blue Jackets, I would even put my name in the ring just for the heck of it.
And that's why Vancouver's smart. Keep adding names. As long as the GM keeps talking and saying, oh, hey, we have interest from this team and this team and this team, it just drives up the price. That's all it does. And this is a guy you're going to have for 2 playoff runs if you don't re-sign him. But it's still 2 playoff runs, and he is a top 3 to 4 defenseman in the National Hockey League. And you're going to pay a premium, and he's going to make sure you pay a premium.
Yeah, and again, this has been going on for a while now. I mean, it's well documented. We could go back to, well, you know what? In my mind, I think it's been in Quinn's mind for a while now. Publicly speaking, Jim Rutherford definitely put it out there last season. It was quite surprising, Bill, that he was so candid about it, so open about it, like desperate to get a deal done. Like he's like, I want to rebuild, I want to do something about it. But if you got to look at Tom Fitzgerald's standpoint, he's probably like, well, I can run out the clock on this if he really wants to be here. Besides, I got my own timeline of what I want to do, because the Devils right now need a winger for Jack Hughes and a third line center. A couple of the pieces, and there's been a lot of injuries, of course, including Jack Hughes. But if you think about it, Bill, now it's getting a little interesting now, because now Jim Rutherford is like kind of forcing Tom Fitzgerald, kind of in a silly way, going all in when because the way it's gone out publicly and all the talks and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. I know a lot of Devils fans would love this trade, and I know a lot of Devils fans that do not want this trade. They want where the help is needed.
Listen, there's another guy, and we'll talk to Lyle about this, but Kiefer Sherwood is on his own team. He hits everything. He also going to be a 20-goal guy. Maybe that's a name that the Devils fans would enjoy seeing, coming playing in Newark. Obviously, listen, Quinn's going to be a dynamic name. He's big ticket. It appeases his brother who's there, right? These guys want to play together. It's kind of something that's been told. But I do think that Devils fans have to – it's not set in stone. There are some teams out there that really do want to take a risk. And, if you guys are looking for more of a winger, but I think Fitzy's got to pull – right, he's got to pull the shoot on this one and get something going with Rutherford. It's just more important.
I think it's just a matter at this point trying to get the money situation figured out, because you go in, if you're a captologist on the New Jersey Devils, then suddenly, you've known about this for a while, but it kind of really screws things up a little bit. Like this is kind of one of those, again, calling an audible right now, mid-season. But you got to think that ownership, David Blitzer, who is in Fitzy's ear, is probably telling, like, if you're an owner, you're probably like, I got the national spotlight on my team because I got the three brothers, for the next 3, 5, 8, maybe eternity, as a New Jersey Devil.
Yep.
No, I don't know. But there are some fans who are thinking, well, we want to win the Stanley Cup. We could wait it out, but so much can change in a year and a half. And I brought this scenario to Scotty on Devils After Dark after the game. It's like, well, we saw, let's make a baseball analogy. What happened with Edwin Diaz and the New York Mets? His brother was traded from Cincinnati to the Los Angeles Dodgers, okay?
Yeah.
The Dodgers, smart as they are probably flying him in private jets. He's probably making league minimum. And they're wining, dining him, meeting celebrities, doing all this stuff, knowing that Edwin Diaz can opt out. And then when this whole thing went down, it was reported that his brother was telling him, glowing about what the Dodgers are about. What happens?
He was there for like 20 games.
Yeah, and what happens if Quinn Hughes gets traded to we're making this up, to the Flyers, reunited with Rick Tocchet, right?
Yeah.
And then the Flyers wine and dine him, all that. And then suddenly he's like, hey, guys, why don't you join me in Philly? Again, I'm just making up scenarios here, but I think it's in the best interest of Tom Fitzgerald to get the job done, even if he doesn't want to. I think he has to. He has to do it.
The only way to ensure that you give the best chance for your stars to stay, and that be the Hughes brothers, is to probably bring in his brother. If they have an inkling or an idea that maybe something is better somewhere else, that affects, how you think about things. So it's best to get him in the building and try to lock him in.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask Lyle. Right now he's standing by in the Andy Green room right now. That there was a Jim Rutherford wants a center.
Yeah,
I've been reading about that. He wants a center, and right now the Devils really don't have any centermen to give him, unless it's Dawson Mercer. But even his AAV doesn't really negate, Quinn's AAV.
Yeah.
So
you got to get a Dougie or something.
But
maybe
but
Palat,
it's just
they take on him for a little bit.
I don't know. I don't think Vancouver wants to take on those contracts. But is there a third team out there that's willing to do that? Could there be a third team in? I'm still wrapping around my mind how this deal can work money wise. Everybody has their ideas. Yeah.
The one thing you can't do is trade him, take half his cap, trade him. The other team takes another half. You can't do that anymore. So it's just going to be a 50% retained. You can't do anything else by the new NHL rules. So
and suddenly, Anyway, well, let's welcome our guests. His name is Lyle Richardson, longtime reporter. Love his stuff. Spectors Hockey, again, the Hockey News, USA Today. You see him everywhere, but you can find him on X at Spectors Hockey. Hello, Lyle. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, Lyle, I know we're calling audibles here on the fly. Nick Villano had an emergency to deal with, so this is Billy Dean. I'm Sam Wu, but we're glad to have you on the State of the Fan Address.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, guys. And by the sounds of things, it's a bit of a lively conversation regarding the flavor of the week, which is Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
Yeah, Lyle, this thing's been going on for a while now. It just really flared up in the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I mean, is this saga going to be going on forever and ever, or is it going to get done within the next week or two? Any team at this point?
Well, it'll only just feel like forever and ever because, first of all, we're talking about Vancouver, the home of hockey drama since, for the last 5 years. And now it's Quinn Hughes' turn in the barrel, and that all started, as you guys know, back in the spring when Jim Rutherford let it slip that, hey, he'd like to play with his brother someday. Though he very quickly then tried to cover it up by saying, hey, that maybe I'll bring them to Vancouver, but just kidding, because that would be tampering. Hee ho ho. But anyway, that started this whole mess. But it really, really flared up back about a week ago. I'd say I believe it was Elliot Friedman who had first of all he reported that the Canucks were kind of open for business in terms of their pending unrestricted free agents or players who had less than 2 years left on their contracts, and at the time that was excluding Quinn Hughes. But then, of course, he then subsequently reported a few days later, the Devils actually did call the Canucks, and they did talk about Quinn Hughes, though apparently he didn't know how far those discussions went. Nothing was imminent. And then that just opened up the floodgates after that, to where we've got TSN reporting that, the Devils were among teams that had called after the Canucks sent their memo around about their pending unrestricted free agents and basically saying, about your other players, so who aren't UFAs, is Quinn available? And you find out that, they don't really want to trade Quinn Hughes, but right now the way that they're playing, they're going to make it kind of difficult for him to want to stay. You've got Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic saying, okay, they've got three choices. Basically, is what he thinks they're going to face. It's either trade Quinn Hughes at the trade deadline, keep him and try to re-sign him to an extension in July when they're eligible to do so. Or if it looks like an extension is impossible, then you move him at the draft, which will provide lots of excitement. But, anyway, he thinks that it would be cleaner if they move him at the trade deadline, because then you're not having to get his agent involved with where he's going, because you would need to get his agent involved if you're going to talk contract extension, and you can't do that until July 1st. So, but getting all that aside, this doesn't to me seem like something that's going to happen right away. Excuse me. Because again, the Canucks don't want to move Quinn Hughes. They really want to keep, for obvious reasons, given who he is. They still think there's time to salvage the season, and that's not outside the realm of possibility. I mean, hey, if the Montreal Canadiens last season at this time could move from dead last into a wild card spot by season's end, the Canucks could pull it off too. But they're going to need to move some players. That's why, obviously, they're talking about moving guys like Kiefer Sherwood. But that's why their asking price for Sherwood has gone from being, we'll take a prospect, to no, we actually want a good young roster player. And a first round pick while we're at it. Yep. So, and the fact that there's not a lot of sellers out there and a whole bunch of buyers, they're trying to capitalize on that. I don't think that's going to get settled anytime soon either. But since we're talking about Quinn Hughes here, the thing we do have to keep in mind is that Jim Rutherford, who's president of hockey ops for the Canucks and the real power behind the throne, if you will, he's not known for dragging things out or waiting to the trade deadline. And we saw it earlier this year with the JT Miller move, followed like hours later by taking the first round pick they got from the Rangers in the JT Miller move and flipping it to Pittsburgh for Marcus Pettersson. So it would not be shocking if a team steps up with a significant offer. And let's not kid ourselves, it would have to be significant. Nick Kiprios of Sportsnet thinks we're talking 4 to 5 pieces, and I think that's correct. You're talking, obviously, a first-round pick is going to be part of it. A top prospect is going to be part of it. I believe, Sam, you were the one who mentioned that they're looking for a center in Vancouver. You are absolutely correct in that. They are. They've been looking for a center since they traded away JT Miller, because Philip Hedl, who they got from the Rangers, God bless him, but he just his concussion history is not a good situation. So they're still looking for a good second-line guy. So maybe if you're talking the Devils, Dawson Mercer might fit into that role. But for me, the issue here is going to be salary. And you guys talked about it earlier. The Devils and their limited cap space right now. And, there are other teams out there who could make much more lucrative offers. They're in better position than the Devils. Because as you said, Fitzgerald's going to have to try and get very creative. And with the limitations now on the whole 3-team, Yahtzee that you used to be able to play with these guys to retain salary, it's a lot more complicated. Now you can do, as you said, 50% retention on one, but then I believe you have to wait. I believe it's 45 days or longer, something like that. I'm not too sure. Yep. Before you could then flip it again to another team and do that whole retention thing. So that's not outside the realm of possibility, but again, very difficult to pull off, given where the Devils currently are with their cap hit. So, and the thing we have to remember here is Quinn Hughes lacks a no trade clause. The Canucks are under, if they decide to trade him, they are under no obligation to him where they send him. If the Detroit Red Wings come up with a better offer, if the Anaheim Ducks come up with a better offer, and I mention those two teams because they have barrels of cap space, both actual cap space right now, projected cap space for the trade deadline, cap space for next season and beyond. And they have a lot of draft picks, a lot of prospects, good young roster players. They can put a package together that, I'm sorry, I don't think the Devils could match it. Not at this stage right now if you're talking an in-season deal. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out. Again, when you're talking to the Canucks, and Jim Rutherford, it could happen. I don't think it would happen before the holiday roster freeze, but it wouldn't surprise me if somebody one of those teams came up with an offer, say in January, if they either get desperate or they see him as the missing piece of the puzzle, they could come up with an offer that could make that deal happen.
Okay. I mean, it's fantastic because obviously Vancouver is one of those teams that there always is noise. And listen, Vancouver fans and that whole organization, they love that team. And, I used to live out in Oregon, and even down there, you could feel the Vancouver love. Is there a factor in this whole thing that you think people aren't talking about when it comes to the Quinn Hughes?
Well, there's been a lot of things that have been covered. I've noticed in recent days now, again, people are acknowledging that, as you guys touched on some of those points earlier, obviously with the Devils, with their limited cap space right now, trying to find the assets, trying to swing the trade. I would think though that as much as we know that Quinn obviously would love to go and play with his brothers, and it would be, I gotta admit, it would be a pretty cool story if they could pull this off and make it happen without gutting the rest of the roster. But I think that people are forgetting here though that as cool as it would be to have him on the team, and what a great story it would be, and yes, it would certainly it would certainly bolster that your depth on your D even more so. Mm-hmm. But that's not really what their need is right now. And, I think that, obviously they're struggling without Jack Hughes right now, which is no surprise to anybody. But they're going to get him back. I believe it's going to be just early in the new year, maybe a little sooner. From the last I heard, it was early new year, that sort of thing. So we know he's going to be back in a few weeks. But that's not going to address, I think, what's been a pressing need since the 2024, just before the 2024 trade deadline. And that's a replacement for Tyler Toffoli. That need has not been, in my opinion, has not been suitably addressed yet. Then they didn't want to move Toffoli, but, at the time, just the situation, the way things were, they had to do it. But they have not been able to find a suitable replacement for him. And that, I think, is a greater need than trying to address the sugar rush of getting Quinn Hughes. And again, remember, there's no certainty that he's going to go, that they're going to move him. The Canucks might figure that, their best offers might come in the offseason, as they usually do when teams have a lot more cap space and a lot more willingness to swing. Yeah, when there's a lot more teams who can get involved there, because, as I said, Hughes lacks no trade protection. They can send him anywhere. And to your point, there are even some teams out there that they may not care that they can only have him for, basically say the 2026 postseason and then the 2027 postseason if he doesn't want to re-sign. There are clubs that could be quite happy with taking him as a 2-year playoff rental. Yeah. And then watching him, and if he helps them win a Stanley Cup, they'll be very happy to let him depart as a free agent in 2027. And I got to think, honestly, that if the Devils are going to make this dream happen, that 2027 is the year when it does, because at least you have the cap space then. Yeah. You're not going to have the cap space really next year to pull it off, because your cap space right now is $10.3 million with 18 active roster players under contract. Yes, you could afford to take on that final year of the contract, but you're going to have to send out to get back. Right. Yeah. And you could end up weakening yourself elsewhere to do it. I think if you're going to do that, you're best to wait to 2027. He could very well end up going to market. And if he does, that your club's going to have the inside track. Whereas right now, trying to trade, especially this season, is going to be hard. And even in the off season, it'd be difficult to pull off. Yeah.
Well, Lyle, you hit the nail on the head. Like if the Devils were to pull it off, and it all comes down to money, but they would literally have to gut the team to do it. Vancouver needs a center. One name that's been floating around in social media, strictly about discussion amongst fans, Nico Hischier, because the salary works, centerman, captain, all that. But we're talking about gutting the team, and I'm not saying the Devils should do that. But that poses a question: are there who's untouchable on the New Jersey Devils roster for a trade if they were to? Because who's untouchable? But there's a lot of.
Well, it'd be funny if they traded Jack for Quinn.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Oh my god! Hey, it addresses each team's needs.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes obviously aren't going anywhere. Hischiar's not going anywhere. You know, I see it also kind of kicked up. Well, maybe Dougie Hamilton, but Dougie Hamilton, he's got a 10-team trade list, not 10-team no trade, 10-team trade list. And why would he want to go to that drama that is the Vancouver Canucks right now?
Yeah,
and he's made it very clear, in no uncertain terms, when his name came up during the offseason, he made it very clear. He wants to stay in New Jersey. He believes he can help them win. So I would say he's untouchable, just based on the fact that he doesn't want to go. And he's, that 10-team clause gives him a lot of clout. After that,
I would say if they did include a Dougie, do you think Vancouver would be interested in that type of player, or would they look to almost not rebuild, but retool a little bit more instead of an older defenseman?
Yeah, I don't think they want an older D-man back. I think they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna so much rebuild. And believe me, Canucks fans right now they're so fed up with all this. A lot of them want the rebuild. They're kind of in a place where the Toronto Maple Leaf fans were about a decade ago. They were ready to embrace the rebuild by that point. They were so frustrated. Everybody there wants it except their owner. Their owner does not want to rebuild. Yeah. So they're going to have to retool. And that's what you kind of saw last season when they made the JT Miller trade, when they acquired Marcus Pettersson. And that's what you're going to see them do because let's be honest here. You're talking about trading a superstar. You're talking about trading a guy who is a perennial Norris Trophy contender. He won the damn thing 2 years ago. He will always be a contender for the next at least 5 years. He's a superstar. So you got to give up a superstar return, and that's what they'd be looking for. Not something that's all draft picks and prospects. They want a couple of good young roster players who can help them right now. And there's not a lot of teams out there that can swing that. And so, I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible for Quinn Hughes to go there, but I can't really envision a trade scenario that the Devils could make it work. I'm sure Fitzgerald will certainly try, but since you've removed that creativity of the three team cap retention to make it happen, I really don't know how he could be able to pull that off. Again, I think their best option is, wait to 2027, because he may not want to commit to a team, and that alone, maybe that might be enough to keep him in Vancouver for the final year of his contract, right? And then you try your luck in the free agent market when you'll have a better chance of getting him.
Yeah, you just mentioned about the chances of re-signing him. You think an acquiring team has a great chance of re-signing him, or you think he wants to test a free agency?
Well, that's a great question, and that's the thing that we need to know is I believe it was Ben Kuzma of the Vancouver province raised a good point about a week ago, where he felt that if it wasn't the Devils, that it would be teams that Hughes has ties with that maybe might have a good chance of not just acquiring him, but being able to sign him to an extension. And he mentioned the Detroit Red Wings. And not just because of the fact that they've got barrels of cap space, they can afford to take him on. They have plenty of picks, prospects, and young players. They could put together that 4 to 5 piece package and would probably be able to get him if Steve Yzerman is willing to do it. But Hughes spent his formative hockey years in Michigan, in the U.S. National Team Development Program, and with the NCAA Wolverines. So he's got ties to Michigan. He's got ties to Detroit. So if the New Jersey is impossible, maybe Detroit, maybe.
It's a great place.
Yeah. But again, there's only only a handful of teams to which he has ties with that you could make that case for. The other one being Philadelphia, because of course his former Canucks coach Rick Tocchet is there, and they got along great. So that there is that, and of course New Jersey because his brothers are there. After that, I don't really think there's very many others that he could go for. So, it would not surprise me to just see him go to free agency and just, have that option then, because that gives him control. rather than in this whole trade scenario where he has no control. Maybe the Canucks might do it out of courtesy. If they have like 3 or 4 teams that are going to give him great offers, they could go to him and go, okay, here's what we got. We like these offers from these 3 teams, but which one would you like to go to? Okay, maybe they do that courtesy. But otherwise, if they're going to trade him, they're going to trade him with a team that's going to give him the best offer, period. And if those offers aren't there, then, that might work to his advantage then, to where he can go to free agency where he has the choice.
Yeah. So, do you see the Hughes trade starting a domino of other trades? Is this going to set the bar?
Oh, it absolutely would. If that trade happens, you think back again to last season. I mean, things were pretty slow until the Mikko Rantanen trade took place. That 3-team blockbuster between the Avalanche, the Hurricanes, and the Blackhawks that sent Rantanen from the Avs to the Hurricanes. That started the whole process off, and by the time we got to the trade deadline, there really wasn't a lot of notable names left in the mill that they wound up getting traded. So if a Quinn Hughes deal happens next month, that's definitely going to be the tipping point. And don't forget, we'll end up having basically 2 deadlines. And I'm not talking about the Christmas one here. I'm talking about the Olympic break coming up, because cast your minds back to 2014, the last time that we had this. God, it's hard to believe that we're going back 12 years. It's been 12 years, yeah. But if you cast your mind back then, we had 2 deadlines, and it was some teams got ahead of everything by moving players before then to avoid that mad rush, because as soon as the Olympics are over, within a few days, boom, the schedule's back. We're back onto it. The roster freeze is lifted, and you're only going to have maybe a couple of weeks to get deals done. So, if a Hughes deal happens in January, I definitely think that's the ultimate domino that just makes everything else start to fall into place.
You mentioned in your article Kiefer Sherwood today. Is he one of the more sought-out players that will definitely be traded before the deadline?
Oh, he definitely will be. Now, whether the Canucks get what they're asking for, that depends. Right now, Kiefer Sherwood, if you ask most hockey fans who Kiefer Sherwood was, most of them wouldn't have been able to tell you. Okay, I hate to be cruel, but in his 8-year career, I mean, he's been known as a fourth line guy, checking guy, bounced around to a few teams, but found his game in Vancouver. Had a career best 40-point season last year. This year, he's on pace to have a career high 35 goals. And even though his production has cooled off lately, the type of game that he plays is well suited for the playoffs. It's that he's feisty, physical, drives to the net, makes things happen. Yeah, that type of player, very popular. So I think there will be a market for him throughout the season. It's just right now people know more about him, and the Canucks are trying to set a higher price because there's so few sellers right now and so many buyers. But yeah, he's definitely going to be a guy that's going to draw a lot of attention.
He hits everything, and he's a very fun player to watch play. He's all over the ice, and yeah, like you said, 35 goals, is what he's aiming for right now, and he's been awesome for that team. And you could see it back when he was with Nashville a little bit too. He's just a ball of energy. Yeah,
might not be a bad affordable addition for the Devils if you can't land the big fish and you've got a bit of cap space. Hey, a guy who's making 1.5 mil, who plays this type of game. You may not have to give up very much to get him.
Yeah. Just to add a little bit onto that, you had mentioned also in your article about Marco Rossi, guys that the Canucks are looking at. Anybody that you've kept an eye on that you really think could be in play for Vancouver?
Well, again, right now it's difficult because, of course, the standings are so tightly packed right there. Right now in both conferences, that there's not really a lot of buyers shaking out there. I'm not surprised that the Canucks are still interested in Rossi, but obviously right now, I mean, the Wild aren't going to part with him. Certainly not for Kiefer Sherwood. I noticed that, again, Ben Kuzma of the Province, he had referred again to Detroit, and he was mentioning, a guy like Marco Kasper, promising young kid like Nate Danielson. that those are the kind of guys that I think that if the Canucks are going to be moving Hughes, or if they're trying to continue a retool, that those are the type of guys that they'd be looking at. A guy like a Rossi, guy like a Marco Kasper or Nate Danielson, young guys who are NHL ready, who can go in and maybe they don't fill a second line role maybe this season, but might be ready to jump up and do that next season. It's guys that are right there who'd be willing to go. If you can't get an established guy in their late 20s, better to get those younger guys who can fit into a retooling process and help you stage a quicker turnaround.
Yeah. Full transparency, I'm a Ranger fan, and I'm filling in obviously with Nick, and I go on the other podcast too. But
I will not hold that against you, sir.
I know. And by the way, JT Miller has done great for the Rangers. So
yes,
I know he's hurt right now, and he's a lot of fun to watch too. But if I'm trying to get back to my question, if you were to predict what's going to happen with Quinn Hughes, what would you think right now will be the end game?
Again, that's a very good question.
Putting you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I mean, Jim Rutherford's not going to move him if a deal's not out there. I don't think a deal for a player of that magnitude is going to be out there at the trade deadline. So I think that they're comfortable, and you have to remember, they're comfortable hanging on to him. They know they got him for another season. Even if he's not going to agree, he's guaranteed with them for one more season. If they can't get what they want at the trade deadline, I think they're comfortable going into the offseason to see how things shake out, see where Hughes is at, what he thinks, where he thinks the direction the team's going, if he's comfortable with it or not. And if he's not, then that gives them time, especially when you start rolling in toward June, where you could start evaluating with teams and start having discussions to set the table to make that move, maybe do the sign and trade. Because if you can find a deal with a team that he'd be willing to sign an extension to, that just increases his value even more. Yeah. So if you can get a sign and trade done then, I think if he's going to move, and I got a suspicion that he is going to move, but I think it will probably be in the off season.
Yeah, I just think that it does make more sense for the Canucks. You have the whole 31 other NHL teams, more cap space, and obviously, like you said, this is still a talented team that could make a run, right? You have Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser and all these guys that so much talent. You expect Thatcher Demko, he's back now. He'll start to turn it up. It's still a good team. So.
And Hughes is going to give 100%. He always does. So, yeah. I mean, he's not going to mail. He hasn't been mailing it in. He always looks unhappy, but he always looks unhappy. That's his game face. It's just resting sad face. Yeah. But
definitely.
You cannot deny that he brings it every game. So
he's fantastic to watch. Yeah.
Yes, he is. Absolutely. He's a template for guys like Lane Hudson in Montreal and these other smaller D guys you're starting to see that come in that are, highly skilled. It's the way the game is going, the direction the game is going. And he's proved that, look, you can be a superstar NHL defenseman being 5'10" and $185 if you wrap him up in a lot of tape.
Yeah, and he's cerebral. I mean, look, I know it right.
Absolutely.
Adam Fox, same thing. You have these young, small guys that just know how to play hockey, and it really is a lot of fun to watch. So, Lyle, thank you very much.
Yeah, Lyle. You have anything to plug before we let you go?
Yeah, you can find me at several places. Of course, my website, spectorshockey.net. I also do the daily NHL Rumor Roundup for the Hockey News. I do pieces for Bleacher Report. I also write for my hometown paper here in Charlottetown, PEI, called the Guardian PEI, and I also write for the weekly column for the, if you read German, for Ice Hockey News in Germany. So there you go.
Really? Wow.
Really.
Love it.
Wow.
I don't speak German. I speak enough German to get my face slapped, but I write it in English and they translate it. And I've been doing that gig with them now for almost 20 years. And it's a lot of fun. I'm kind of like one of their NHL correspondents, if you will. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
A lot of fun.
I like it. That's awesome.
Well, that's awesome.
I'm sure they're asking you about Draisaitl all the time.
Yeah, they do. They do. And it's fun. I don't mind that at all. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lyle, and we'll have to have you on next time. Maybe after this trade. whoever it is.
If it actually goes down, guys, I would love to come and talk to you about it.
Appreciate it. Well, thank you, Lyle.
Thanks, Lyle.
Take care.
That is Lyle Richardson of Spectors Hockey giving his insight. For many years, I've read Lyle, Billy. And it's always great to have him on the podcast. Good friend of the podcast. He's been on here multiple times. Great guy. Always fun to talk to. Knowledgeable. But
yeah, I've seen him on the Hockey News, and I've seen obviously stuff with the notes he does, and it's very good hockey writer. Obviously knows what he's talking about, and like you said, this situation with Quinn Hughes is very fluid. It's a team that honestly I don't think know exactly where they're going at the moment, but they have a premier asset, and it is within Rutherford's rights to wait to see that he gets either the best offer or he waits to the offseason and sees what happens from there. So my bet would be it waits to the offseason. I've thought about that before. But listen, Devils fans, as a Ranger fan, I don't want to see him on your guys' team, but you're going to have to move heaven and earth to get this guy on your team. And that means, contracts are going to have to go the other way.
Fitzy's in a bad spot here. He's in a real bad spot because he's dealing with Rutherford's impatience.
Yep.
But he's also has his owner in his ear every day. You got the fan standpoint, but this does not fit the plan, process, timeline, whatever you want to call it. I think Fitzy's on shaky ground here. Like, I don't think he'll do it. I really don't, because at the end of the day, Bill, it's all about money. And we're not talking about which team has money and which team doesn't. It's about cap space. That's what I mean about money. And, and now the rules, again, and the reason why I brought the third team is, could you find a team to actually make the one-on-one trade and then deal with that team? That's what I was more or less trying to, kind of like Mike Piazza when he was with the Marlins for 5 days, something like that. Could you find a surrogate at this point?
With the retained stuff, and that would really only listen. Vancouver's not going to retain salary to get him over here. It would be the Devils having to retain salary to possibly shed a contract like Hamilton or Palat, and that's going to be very tough to do because I can't see Vancouver. Even though they're going to get a ton of assets, if they got a Mercer and they got Simon Nemec and firsts and all this other stuff, whatever you guys, the final packages, you still have to shed the contracts, and I don't know that that's going to happen.
I
don't. It's a better deal for the offseason. It really is. Yeah,
but at the same time, I think the goal here is to make sure that no other Metropolitan Division team has access to Quinn Hughes and let him run out his contract. If he really wants to play in New Jersey, wait till 2027. Till then, you got to stay the course. I mean, Lyle's right, and we've been saying this on this podcast for a long time now. We started the season asking ourselves, what winger would you put with Jack Hughes as for a trade this season that's in their mid-20s, in the same age bracket? Who would that be?
I'd talk to the Dallas Stars, Jason Robertson.
We've been talking about him as well.
And obviously Rangers fans, they're also clamoring for him too. So and who wouldn't clamor for a 26-year-old, 100-point winger that is most likely to be on Team USA. He's going to be, he's going balls to the wall right now because he wants to make this team. But you've seen it before. He's an extremely good high-end player, an American. He's a lot of fun to watch. There's a couple other guys I could think of, Devils fans wanting for wingers that, could be available, but he's number one on my list for, and I don't think it's even close.
Yeah. And, Jay Snow in the YouTube live says it's going to cost a ton for Robertson.
Yeah.
That's so
as much as it will for Quinn Hughes. So you're going to pay that price.
And the talk. I mean, Nashville, Barry Trotz, he's just asking for the moon. Like, I don't know if he even is even serious. I don't. Yeah. Well, that's
There's the whole talk, right? Stamkos and all this other stuff, and Trotz just is kind of in over his head. But listen, Dallas, I think they're going to have to make a Robertson deal. I think they just have too much high-end contracts on there. They just paid Wyatt Johnson, and they have Duchesne and Sagan, and you still have a boatload of guys that are making a ton of money. I think they're going to have to eventually trade him, and it's going to be for a good young player and picks and stuff. But they're going to want a rosterable player now that no one's going to fill in for Jason Robertson. You're not going to get a player like that, but he's got to be able to fit in the lineup seamlessly. And maybe that is a Dawson Mercer. I think you'd have to give a lot more, but that's where I think they'd be looking, Dallas.
Yeah. Well, Bill, wow, I think you're the E-Bub of the Let's Go Devils podcast. We went deep into the farm system to bring you up on a moment's notice, coming from the city in your
work attire. I was at a dinner, a company outing.
Were you brown nosing tonight?
I always brown nose.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was actually having a conversation with another person about brown nosing at these Christmas parties. Oh,
you gotta go in just knowing that you're gonna suck up.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Yeah, the problem is I don't suck up to anybody. That's why I'm terrible at these parties.
No, I suck up. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you really?
I do.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh wow. I like to see I like to see in action. Well, I've always said that Madison Square Garden, the Ranger fans,
capital of the world. See all the Stoots going there? They're making deals. They're not watching the game.
Exactly. The 400 level, I'll give it to you. Those are hardcore fans.
Yeah. Us hardcore fans. We really do love our hockey, but the guys in the inner bowl.
Oh,
you can't.
Do you know how many Devils fans that I know that suck up that sell out and suck up to their bosses and go to these Rangers games at Madison Square Garden, and then they just get the brunt of all the jokes from because they know that they're Devils fans, especially when it's been going on for years, but did they ever clean up the asbestos?
No, it's all over the place.
Oh yeah, okay. Just wondering. All right. Well, thank you, Billy, for hopping on a moment's notice. Nick thanks you as well. Gonna get out of here right now, Bill. Gonna drop the podcast in about 10-20 minutes. We got the Morning Woo tomorrow. We've got Game Day Live and Devils After Dark at American Whiskey tomorrow before the Devils take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Saturday, we'll be there as well. We got 2 matinee games. We got Saturday against the Ducks. Sunday against the Vancouver Canucks, believe it or not. But Saturday is going to be a traffic nightmare because apparently they're filming a movie around the Prudential Center and they're closing off the streets. Yeah, what timing? What kind of movie is being filmed at that hour? Like, you couldn't wait another weekend? Jerks. Oh, I you know what? This is what I do, Bill, before we go.
Your life better.
I ignore every traffic rule in Newark. If it's a red light, I'll just go. It's Newark. Anyway. That's all. Hands 10 and 2 in the wheel, 9 and 3 if you prefer. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com. Till next time, let's go Devils.